G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by Space Tomato and Mr. Moist. Wait, or is it more like M Noodle? I don't know. Moist Noodle.
Mr. Noodle is fine.
Mr. Noodle, right.
M. Noodle.
Looking way too comfortable there in, you're in a holiday home at the moment, yeah?
Paradise, dude, for 6 weeks. It's awful. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to do with my life other than sit beside a pool.
Yes.
A travesty.
Yes. I'm
Awful.
very jealous at the moment, sitting here freezing my ass off at the arse end of the world. So yeah. But I do have very nice nature as well, so I can relate to what you were telling us earlier.
And a lot of crazy animals.
Yes. Very, very much a lot of crazy animals. Have you guys ever,
Dude,
have you ever heard?
dude, I'm a tarantula collector, dude. I could talk to you about tarantulas and spiders all day long. Do you want to turn into a tarantula podcast?
Well, if you're ever down this way, you need to check out the Tasmanian devils. They're called devils for a reason. They sound very much
dude, but
like
they look so adorable.
They are. They're very adorable, but they are very, very aggressive. But yeah, so yeah. We're going to talk to Moist today. This is a casual conversation. We've done this with a couple of people now, Space. I think this may turn into a bit of a series with me and you. So we've done this with Moist and Dig That and Morph. We've done Morph twice, actually. Talked to Morph twice. So we're going to turn this into a bit of a conversation where me and Space just find a content creator and talk them stupid.
I gotta be honest with you, it feels like a bit of an honor because Inforunners is like a staple of the Star Citizen community at this point.
Really?
So thank you for having me on. Yeah, dude.
Oh, you're welcome.
Like you guys have been around forever.
I don't feel that big, man. I feel like we've got this small little cool niche community, but I really dedicated people. So yeah, thanks. That's a high honor.
It's the recognition.
Yeah,
it's the recognition. Like it definitely has been around for long enough that like anybody who follows Star Citizen pretty closely knows what Inforunners is.
Oh,
absolutely.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it very much. So I'm going to start it off with a question for both of you, because you guys are both streamers, and this is a question that I have as a problem I have with streamers, right? So it's a hard-hitting question, but I think you're both logical enough to take the question. And you know what's telling about my camera and how it freezes randomly? It's just done that.
Oh no, dude!
It's all good. Don't worry about it. It's fine. We roll with the punches here.
Actually, that is what we were talking about for sure.
And guess what? Yeah. That light is off. That light was off. So you've probably knocked the nail on the head. I'll look at that after the show. Now you've said that. So yeah. So the question I have, one of my problems I have and it's not a problem as such, is a lot of the people come to me because we do Fix My Fleet, right? Which is a series that we do here where we look at people's fleets. And one of the things we hear a lot is Streamer X said this is a good ship, right? And obviously everyone has different opinions, right? And that's totally fine. And there is no real wrong or right ship, right? I just want to clarify that part. But as streamers, do you think that you guys are a little bit too much in the now and not enough in the release of the game category? And I'd like to get your thoughts on that. How do you guys approach the now versus the release of the game?
I completely agree with you, dude. And it's something that am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, it's been 1 minute.
It really pisses me off. And my general attitude when people come into my channel, I think a lot of people forget that there are two ways to look at ships in Star Citizen. You can look at it as in like the meta mind frame of what is the best ship to use right now for whatever task it is that I'm trying to achieve. Or you can go for what ship do I think is just the coolest, right? And I think every streamer is different in how they achieve that. But for me, my attitude is, dude, I can't pick for you. All right. If you want to know what the metas are, A, B, and C are the metas for, say, combat. Pick one of those if you just want the meta ship. But other than that, just go for whatever you think is cool, because something to bear in mind is it very often does change from patch to patch.
That's what I was about to ask you. How often does it change from patch to patch?
Yeah. I don't just... I try, as a streamer, I try to go a little bit further and I ask the questions to try and work out what it is exactly they're looking for. Because you can't just give that one solid answer, It comes down to the individual person who's asking the question.
What about you, Space? What's your kind of response to that as a streamer? And then I guess you probably get a little bit different from Moist because you hang out with us so much, and I think we might have had a bit of an influence on you. But you correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm of the same mindset as Moist. And honestly, I don't really consider myself a streamer. I consider myself a YouTuber who streams because first and foremost, my favorite thing to do is make informative videos. So generally, my content is all focused on the development, which means that I always come at it from a where is this going sort of look rather than a what's going on now kind of look. And that's actually something I've been trying to change because I realize we've gotten to the point where like it doesn't matter anymore. Like back when we were still getting features like the ability to send money to each other or rent ships or like some of these more very basic features. It was kind of like, yeah, we're developing. Like you need to kind of ignore the idea of what the ship is right now because things are so in flux. But at this point, people are jumping in. They're making it their daily game. CIG is clearly starting to push this as like, come and play this game regularly. So I'm starting to relent and try and meet people in the middle and be like, okay, well, you should be looking at this ship based on what you want to do in the verse. But at the same time, if there's something that you want to be doing now, then yeah, this ship might be good for you. But I'm in the same boat as Noodle. I'll ask people like, what is your goal in the game? Because there's no best ship. There's no right answer. It's whatever you want to do.
That's two really good answers from both of you because that's very similar to how we do Fix My Fleet. One of the very first questions we ask them are like, what are the top 3 professions you want to do in the game? And that's where we start. And I think the opposite of what Moist said, where what are the meta ships? The complete opposite of that, as you would know, Space, is the Endeavor. It's going to take a really long time to get here, but it's probably going to have more gameplay. It's going to grow really big and large. I don't know if you know, Moist, but at the end of last year, do you know where they do the ISC live and they do the ship questions? That question at the end that was asked, like, where does John Crew think like he wants to kill himself every time the Endeavor's mentioned? That came from me. Because yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just about to say, you kind of touched on something that I was about to say, which is for my own personal fleet, and this is something that I do bring up when people ask the question. In my personal fleet, I'm in a privileged position where I used to work in IT. I was a single guy. I still am a single guy, forever alone. I have no kids.
Welcome to the party, pal. I'm the same.
I've been able to throw all my money at CIG, right? And I have a nice size fleet. And essentially, looking at my fleet, apart from 2 ships, is where the game is going. And what I mean by that is they are not meta ships. Some of them aren't ships that are not even in the game right now, like the Polaris. Yep. They are ships that I am waiting for. I'm in for the long haul. But I have the 2 money-making ships. And then using those 2 ships, I make all the money that I use to buy the other ships in game.
I knew I'd like
money-making ships.
I knew I'd like you, Moist. Like you're a very thought-out guy, very logical, as you said, logical and passionate. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. What are those 2 ships? Sorry.
The Eclipse and the Arrow, because I'm super into combat in Star Citizen, and a lot of people think of me as a PvP guy, but I'm actually not so much a PvP guy these days. The only reason I kind of got into PvP, and you guys have been around for long enough to back me up here, is that there was really not much to do for a very, very long time. And I just ended up surrounding myself with a social circle of PvPers in Star Citizen. As a result, I started getting into PvP. But, when I think of where I want Star Citizen to go, it's Star Wars Galaxies, right? It's living in the universe, and that doesn't necessarily have to be PvP. I firmly believe that people should learn to defend themselves when it comes to PvP, at the very least. But all I'm really interested in is just living in the universe. And Siege of Orison is a great example. Yeah. I've been absolutely loving Siege of Orison, server performance aside. So
you've just been following the game really and going with what it's got.
Going wherever the current patch is taking us, plus what the community is doing in the moment, because that's really important. We have an incredibly powerful, passionate, and very kind community.
100%.
And I just try to engage with that as much. Well, I'm very introverted, but I try to engage with that as much as I can. You know,
I think the majority of people who play this game still have to play like that, which is what I think also a lot of people will continue to use as kind of the last. You know how it's always the goalposts have always moved as to why Star Citizen isn't good enough or isn't going to be a game. And I think that whole, well, I can't do what I want is going to be a sticking point for people for a long time. Because like, if you're not mining or combat focused right now, you kind of just got to do whatever is being put into the next patch.
You know, you touch on something. I'm really sorry that we've kind of gone away from the original question, but I think it's
where it goes. Just go wherever it goes.
Something that I say a lot on my stream is one of the things that is most important to me, and this is going to sound very corny, but it's so incredibly genuine. One of the most important things in this community is the community, right? It's such a kind, strong community. But something that I think makes Star Citizen very different to most other games, and especially most other online games, is the fact that Star Citizen somehow attracts people from so many different gaming backgrounds, right? Yeah. You get people coming to Star Citizen from Stellaris. You get people coming to Star Citizen from EVE Online. You get people coming to Star Citizen from Escape from Tarkov. You get people coming from Elite Dangerous, right? From PUBG. It's absolutely insane. And I think that's why it's probably going to get a little bit more difficult for CIG, because the community has grown. In the last 2 years, the community has exploded. It's absolutely insane. And in terms of streaming, it's more competitive now in the Star Citizen 100%. Category than it ever has been before.
There are so many new names in there. Like, you go into that list now, and I have to wade through names to get to people I know that I didn't have to do before.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen my numbers go down, but I don't care, because what that means is that people have more choice.
Yeah.
And they can find a content creator that and a content creator's community that they really resonate with, right? But I was just going to say, to bring it back, when you have so many different people coming to the Star Citizen community and to the game, who come from so many different backgrounds, they're expecting different things from the game, right? Like, for me, I'm really in it for the combat. Not, like I said earlier, not necessarily the PvP, but for the combat. And when I think about how I want to see the game be improved, right? For me, in my mindset, I want to see more combat missions. I want to see more cinematic. Some people don't like this, especially with like Siege of Orison. I've seen complaints that it's probably too on rails, and it's too.
I think a lot of that's early days because we don't have the server meshing.
Yeah.
So
exactly. That, not just the server meshing, but I think we also don't have the tool for the developers yet to create the missions that they really want to make.
I still think
convincing AI.
Yeah. Well, it's all. We're all waiting on that last thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the background. You can see they've got a lot of stuff ready to go. They've got to have that last pillar there. Look, I just want to ride on the back of what you said there, because at the Bar Citizen when I went to, where my arm kind of went all bad, me and Algrid actually recorded a lot of footage, but in typical Algrid fashion, none of the sound was recorded. But in all the interviews, there was a very telling thing, because I talked to the people that were there, and it's just like what you mentioned. Everyone mentioned community, man. Everyone. Yeah. And it was really interesting. There was just this overarching theme that it's got nothing to do with the game. It's everyone they've met along the way, all these really cool people. And it's the same thing, and I assume you guys have both been to a bar. Have you been to a Bar Citizen Space?
No.
Okay, you need to go, right? You walk into a room. It's like when you go to a party, you've got to go round the room and trying to find people that you kind of get out with and get along with. Everyone in the room you get on with. It's just amazing.
Dude, you make such a solid point, because I get people coming into my chat quite regularly. And whenever I mention CitizenCon or a Bar Citizen, people are like, but I'm super introverted. I don't think that's my kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, the thing I am hugely introverted, all right? If you saw me in a pub, I look like the most awkward person you've ever seen in a room, right? But when you go to like Bar Citizen or CitizenCon, something that I learned from a friend of mine who is a DJ, who is one of the most charismatic people that I've ever met in my life. He said something so profound to me once, which was, when you meet somebody for the first time, the best thing they can do is start asking questions about them, because most people's favorite topic is themselves. And maybe not favorite topic, but it's a thing that, you know, they know themselves, right? And it's really what he was saying is it's about finding that mutual talking point. And the thing that's incredible about going to CitizenCon or a Bar Citizen is everybody has a mutual talking point. Oh, what's your favorite ship? Oh, I love Anvil too. It's the best manufacturer. You know, it's so easy to talk to people.
You just walk up to someone and be like, hey man, how long you been running this marathon? 7 years? Okay, cool. Or
what's your favorite ship? Or who's your favorite manufacturer? Or something like that. And just any of those questions, and you're off to the races. And guess what? That goes all the way up. It's the same thing with Chris. If you've ever, I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to talk to Chris, but he's just as passionate as us. He's like full on nerd mode. And he'll just go off the deep end.
Oh yeah, you can see it on the stage.
So the first time I ever met Chris was at CitizenCon 2018. And I was actually doing some work for JRDF, the model makers. And they're also the guys who basically create the in-game desks for SitCon, and they make all the big models, and they made the life-size Dragonfly. Well, I was involved with the Dragonfly that year, and I was involved with the Kraken. And I actually, on top of the huge Kraken model, there was also a number of 3D printed models that had to go on there. I had to carry those in my luggage to Austin, Texas. And by the time I got there, most of them were broken.
Oh, shit.
It wasn't my fault. So I was literally sat on the floor of this walkway, gluing them together the night before SitCon, losing my mind, stressed to hell. And again, I'm super introverted, and it doesn't take much to piss me off. And I also like my personal space. And I knew that there was somebody stood behind me, and they kept rustling their feet. So I snapped around to yell at them. And there's Chris Roberts. And I was just like, oh, hello. And he was like, oh, they're all right, aren't they? I was like, yes, Chris. I was so nervous, dude.
Catch you off guard.
How
did that, what was the conclusion of that? Did you get them all fixed or what?
Oh yeah, I managed to get them all fixed, and it looked freaking awesome, man. Like that Kraken model was absolutely sick. And the crazy thing about it was, I think that model was actually thrown together in like 3 weeks. Which it was around 3 weeks, which sounds like a lot of time, but trust me, when you got to get it shipped to another country and get it painted, and get electronics in there for lighting as well, it was a very, very tough build. So
that's crazy.
I've actually hung out with those JR Fabrication boys. They do it.
They're really, really cool guys.
Yeah, they're really cool. I was on the captain's table with them, and then I hung out with them a couple other times. That's my thing. I like to get around and hang out with every single. Like I even go looking for. That's how I met Space. I go looking for new content creators, and I dropped in on his YouTube channel, and I said, "Oh, dude, you're going places." And he's like, "Nah." I said, "Dude, within 12 months you'll be bigger than us," and he was. You know, like he didn't believe me at the time, but like, I see talent now when I go looking. So but Chris was the same. Like I was super awkward when I met Chris as well, and he was just. We just ended up talking for an hour. We were in this.
He's just the dude.
Yeah, we were in a hall at the end of the day of PAX, and they were kicking everyone out. It was just me and Chris in this empty hall for like an hour and a half, and it was just full on. Just talking about the game.
Have you ever talked to Aaron?
No, but Algrid has.
Dude. Yeah. Aaron is such a Chad, dude. He's so cool. Like when I spent a weekend working in the Manchester office with the JRD, we were basically putting the new reception in with the Saber Raven hanging and the new desk and stuff. And Aaron came up to me and John, and we were just chatting for like an hour nonstop. Yeah. And I don't know if he was memeing, but he accidentally called the Van Duel the Kilrathi a couple of times. I was too polite to correct him. But yeah, he's so cool, dude.
I'm going to be so surprised if, you know how there's like, we hear about races behind the other races? Like the Gathak and stuff like
Gathak,
that. Yeah, I would not be surprised if one of those is not the Kilrathi or cat people at some point, like just for a meme, or maybe you just through the universe you just keep finding these relics of some race and they're just like a cat or a cat toy or something like that. Just all these little memes.
What if the Vandal aren't actually the bad guys and they're actually running away from the bad guys and they're being chased by cat people?
Should we tell him, Space? Should we tell him? Oh no! It was actually it wasn't you. It was Seer that I went through this with. So if you actually look up the Roman Empire, right? So the game is actually based on the Roman Empire. When you look it up, it actually talks about how they were pushed out by Vandals, right? The current running theory is, because it's based on the thing, is that the Vandal are not actually the bad guys. They're being pushed out of their own system and onto us.
This is what I've been saying for years, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's based on the Roman Empire, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
People were I believe they were being pushed out of Germania and into the Roman Empire. So it's very similar to what happened there. So I won't say any more because I don't want to spoil too much. But I firmly believe
if we're right.
Race.
And we're right. I called it like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's also a similar situation with the Kurthak and the Xi'an, right? Like we don't actually know what the deal is going on with them, but they could always develop that in the same direction because we're under the impression that Kurthak might be bigger than the Xi'an, right? Militarily.
Well, yeah. My theory with Paul. Like this, we need Paul here for this conversation because he's the law guy. But
I'm so bad with law.
Yeah. Well, that's why we've got Paul and Algrid, and I know Space gets dragged into their Lord podcast as well. He's a bit of a law guy too.
I try to hang on.
Yeah, he rides about the seat of his pants on that one. And they've been telling me for months now they want me to come and ask dumb questions, but I haven't got the invite yet. But that'll happen sooner or later. But so with the Gathak they talk about a thing called the Spirit Wars, and my running theory is they're actually the robots of the universe. So the Spirit Wars is in they have no spirit, so that's why I think they might be a robot race. So that's my running theory with the Gathak is they're robots, but we'll see what happens with that. So as I said, there's some kind of race that's pushing the Vandal in, and my theory is somewhere along the line in that that 3-episode arc, I actually think we'll team up with the Vandal, the enemy of my enemy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Yeah.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, dude.
The huge twist is that we work together in the end. So yeah.
Halo
dude,
vibes.
I don't know if you guys ever played Free Space 2.
A little.
But Free Space 2 was absolutely incredible. And there was a ship in Free Space 2 called the Colossus, which is essentially their version of the Retribution, right? Mm-hmm. And there's this amazing moment where the Colossus comes out and it's super epic and it starts kicking the shit out of everybody, and then it gets destroyed, and it's just this whole holy crap moment. And I have a funny feeling that's the way the Retribution is probably going to go. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Retribution gets destroyed in Squadron 42, but then we end up having to team up with the Vandal to actually fight the genuine bad guys. But dude, I'm so excited for Squadron 42.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
You got
I can't wait.
Got my kind of mind racing now. All the things that we could get about joining up with the Vandal. Like, do they eventually become a playable race? Do we get like Vandal built ships for the human empire, like the Banu and the Xi'an? Like, think of all the places that's going to go. Very interesting.
They gotta keep them. They gotta keep them the baddies though, or else it wouldn't make sense in Star Citizen, right?
Oh, but then you can have new baddies. Yeah, and guess what? My camera froze as well. It's all going to shit at once.
Guess what? Mine hasn't, because I don't use Elgato.
No, that was I accidentally just kicked my cord.
Oh no!
There we go.
There goes execute.
Man, like now you've mentioned it, I can't unsee it. That light keeps going off. It is the Elgato. I can't believe it. So
funny.
People that watch the show will know I've been struggling for months, and these two gents think it's the little Elgato capture card, and it is. The light's going off on it.
Dealt with it before it's happened to me.
So I'm gonna have to get a new capture card. Wow. Okay, that's a lot cheaper than buying a new camera.
I sent you the link to the one that I use. Yep. It's like $20 and it's amazing in comparison to the Elgato. Well, really good.
I'll be picking one up for me and Algrid right after this show. So yeah.
Here's the second one I had to buy because the first one wasn't working, and then this one stopped working, but then the first one started working. So now I'm on the first one again.
Really? Wow.
Tons of wasted money. Yeah. Love it.
All right, I'll have to look into that because apparently the software you use has to have the Elgato, but I'm wondering if I'll look into it after. It doesn't matter. Yeah. All right, so we've talked a bit about Squadron 42. You said you're really looking forward to Squadron 42. I'm going to ask this question then. Looking at games like Call of Duty, right? I'm going to use that as the benchmark. Some of the most influential or most, the biggest, most popular versions of the Call of Duty franchise, the ones that had Kevin Spacey and the actor that played Jon Snow. Now, based on that, we've got 30 plus really well-known actors. Some of them were very small back when they did the like Henry Cavill. He's now done Superman and The Witcher, multi-million-dollar actor. You've got Gillian Anderson. I'm gonna butcher some names here.
Who doesn't even remember that she was in Squadron 42? By the way, she was asked about it recently, and she didn't even know what Squadron 42 was.
Yeah, it's probably like a blip on her radar.
But I was reading the monthly reports the other day, and I thought something that popped into my head is if they need callbacks, right, to fill in lines that they didn't realize they needed originally. It must be very difficult for the actors, right, to try and get back into that role that they probably filmed, like 6 years ago.
Not to mention expensive.
Yeah.
And expensive. Yeah.
What do they do when they do part 2? Bringing Henry Cavill back, he's gone from back then.
No, they're just gonna have to kill off all famous people. Just get rid of them all in episode 1.
Get the streamers in.
I'll do it. I can just see Board Gamer now, like.
I'll do it for a $5. I don't mind, honestly.
Yeah, it'll be worth it. They like, come on, they have to do that. They cannot keep bringing back a cast this big because that's part of, like, first when you try and hire this many people for a game like this, it's like, that's expensive, but okay, we'll see what you do. But if they have to keep coming back for reshoots and they have to come back for sequels and all this stuff, it starts to add up. Like, they gotta wipe them out, take them out.
Unless, I don't know if you guys know the answer, but unless they filmed all of it in one go, I honestly don't know if they only filmed Chapter 1 or if they did all of the work in one go.
Well, also, they've probably got a bit more profit, though, once Squadron 42 comes out. Star Citizen will be a bit bigger by then. Maybe they will have the money. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe they've already got contracts for all 3 episodes.
I have a question for you two, though. Obviously, right now, the development of Squadron 42, I firmly feel really is taking away from Star Citizen, right? So when Chapter 1 comes out, would you like more emphasis put on the development of Star Citizen? Or would you be happy with them just going straight on to working on Chapter 2? Can
I answer that in a different way? Because I actually pretty sure I know what the plan is. So you know how they're building out all the new offices at the moment in Manchester and Frankfurt, and they're planning to increase the size of the number of people globally. They're going to double it from 750 to 1,400 or whatever. Those new people are for Star Citizen, right? And the current team will just continue to work on episode 2. Okay. Does that make sense?
Are you confident that they're going to be able to hire enough people? Because they always seem to have like 300 plus roles available on their recruitment website.
They do. So I guess, that is probably the linchpin there. But they've got a lot of new people that are coming in to work on the tools in, what's that place called? In the French place,
Montreal.
Montreal, thank you. Yeah, they got a lot of new people.
Montreal, by the way, I think has been one of the best things that's happened to Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Those guys are knocking it out of the park.
Well, they've come up to speed very quickly. So my whole thing is, they might getting a lot of new people. My biggest concern, right, as a former developer myself, is you always hear these horror stories of CIG having really high staff turnover, like they're losing a lot of the veterans and stuff like that. We've had some real wins though as well. Like remember when Frankfurt came on board, that's really where.
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, I think both Frankfurt and Montreal are two of the biggest wins that CIG have really had.
Yeah, so there's always. I look at the industry as a whole. You got to look at the whole of game development. They all have these kind of issues, especially at the moment. There's huge staff turnover, and there's a real people are not they're not happy with where they are. There's a lot of movement at the moment, and there's a lot of people wanting to be paid more. So my real concern is CIG paying their staff enough? And if they are, they will get the people they need. I think.
Go on, Tomato.
I was just going to say there is a lot of turnover and struggles to keep staff in the gaming industry in particular right now, for sure. I mean, I watch a lot of general gaming channels. I was just watching Skill Up the other day, and he was talking about how Ubisoft was having a lot of trouble hanging on to almost all of the staff that had signed something, a petition from last year. And we keep hearing about it with different game development studios. They're not able to, they've been delaying their games constantly. Like, yeah, it's definitely not just Star Citizen that's seeing it. Star Citizen might have a particular struggle, but it's not a standout in the industry, it seems.
Yeah,
we're in a.
I just want to say real quick, as a fellow Australian, I actually reached out to Skill Up. He is so anti-Star Citizen, it is not funny.
Really?
Yeah, he had a little quip the other day on his show, and I was like, what?
He does it all the time. And I reached out to him and said, look, as a fellow Australian and Star Citizen content creator, I would love the time to be able to show you how wrong you are about this game. Along those lines is what I said. I did it a lot nicer than that.
I'm sure he liked that.
No, and he never got back to me. He's probably too big to give a shit, so that's fine. Sorry.
Yeah, he's going to cover it when it becomes a thing.
I think he'll do. I think like we know because we're in it, right? But he has swallowed that media pill where Star Citizen's bad. It's a scam. He just,
look. We've seen it. We are all old enough in this community to have seen the change in attitude from the general gaming community. Like I've seen recent Reddit posts on the r/gaming subreddit. Now, historically, you mentioned Star Citizen in r/gaming and they would tear it apart. I went through the comments on this post like last week, and so many people were loving on Star Citizen. It's absolutely insane how it's changed.
I just
wanted to bring it back very quickly.
Yeah, sorry.
I just want to bring it back very quickly to the staff turnover conversation. You know, we're all in a very privileged position where I'm sure all of us have friends at CIG.
Yep.
And, you know, recently I was talking to two separate people from CIG who said pretty much the same thing to me, which was almost immediately after they joined CIG, they got headhunted. And they were given very, very generous offers. And I think you're probably right when you mention that, you know, CIG probably do underpay a little bit. I don't know for sure. I'm just assuming. But the fact that there are companies out there headhunting people who almost immediately join CIG as juniors, by the way, is very interesting. And it really, I don't think it's just CIG. I assume, you know, it happens all over the industry, but it really shows how competitive the gaming industry is, I think.
If you look at it, like we were saying, from a logical point of view, why bother actually looking for content when you can just steal it from other people? You know, as in, so you know, they've taken the whole time to hire them, vet them, get them in. And so someone just headhunts them straight away because it's like, well, they've vetted them. I'll just steal them because we know they're not paying them as well as they should be.
True.
That's why they do it, you know, because there's a lot of money spent on HR and all that stuff. And they've just found a really simple way. Well, we'll just keep going to CIG and stealing their guys. So, yeah.
You know, one of the things that has been great about CIG, though, historically, I don't know if it happens so much anymore, I probably doubt it, is the amount of people who have been hired out of the Star Citizen community, even without game development experience, you know. And that's actually been great to see because, you know, just to offer a few names, you know, Jake, for example.
That's a good one.
Kay Winter. Kay Winter, for me, has been, he was somebody who I met in game, by the way. And we just ended up playing together, and he now works on the player experience team. He originally got his job with the marketing team, moved over to player experience, and he is somebody who is very, very in touch with the community.
That's good.
And he takes our feedback and he makes active, positive change based on our feedback.
That's great to hear because I don't hear that a lot. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of time where I think sometimes they don't take on board what we say.
And I can give you another example. There's a guy called Jerry. He's known on Twitch as Seaside Sandies. He doesn't work for CIG at the moment. I'm trying to convince him to go back. But he's actually the guy responsible for the 890 jump mission. He's the guy who made that mission. He's the guy who made the Caterpillar mission. And he spends so much time in people's Twitch chats, even now when he's not working for CIG, you know, and he was definitely somebody who was fantastic at taking on board people's feedback and applying it to the game, you know. So it definitely does happen. I think a lot of people, you know, I see comments in my chat quite a lot from people who don't think it happens. It does happen.
It does.
But something that I've noticed is there are a lot of, I'm not going to call people out, but there are a lot of people who I recognize in Twitch chats who are CIG staff, but they don't like to shout out there. They're CIG stuff.
Because they get a lot of questions, don't they? It's like, why haven't you done this?
Exactly.
It's always.
You mentioned Red.
It's always the.
Oh, sorry. Go Space.
In those situations when you know that somebody in the staff is a dev, and like they're having a conversation, like we're in the active topic of what it is they specialize in, and like they're kind of slipping in words there to sort of let everybody know this is how it works, and people are like, what do you mean you don't know that, like where do you get that information? You're like, please just like just let them go with it.
I remember way back when on the Reddit, actually, this guy was putting up it was in the hangar and he was redoing the lighting for the hangar. He's going, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And then like 2 weeks later he had a job at CIG. And he was actually doing all the lighting and everything. It was quite funny just to see this whole so it totally does happen. That's the thing. But
also, you know, when I get devs in my chat, like Seaside Sandy's is the perfect example. He's a level designer, right?
Yep.
Like the moment somebody realizes he works for CIG, and they like, I'm very good at pointing out to people what role that they fill at CIG, right? And they have experience in that role, so don't like expect them to answer questions about something outside of that role. But there will always be people who are like, oh, Seaside Sandy's, you work at CIG, bro, where's my so-and-so shit, where's my Banu Merchantman, bro? Like, dude, chill out.
That's what I meant.
Down.
That's exactly what I meant about once they just start bombarding. Like I don't talk about the games I used to work on, right? Because as soon as people find out, questions just like thick and fast that I don't want to talk about, and I just like all these awkward questions that I'm trying to forget from my past. So I can totally relate to that. So I just don't even talk about it anymore. So that's why I knew what you were talking about. Should we move the conversation a little bit along? You mentioned the Seas of Horizon. How about we talk about where the game's at now, and a little bit more about where we want it to go? And how do you guys feel about that? Because I know you want to talk a little bit about the patch now, so I this is the most prepared I think I've ever been for a podcast, and I have so many notes around 3.17.2. Well, I feel honored. You didn't have to. I even said to you, no prep required. Just turn up. We'll talk. No, dude. Yeah. I had to do some prep. So, Siege of Horizon. Sounds
I
very
think
French when you say it like that. waiting for baguettes that are like ninja stars or something. Yeah.
I think it's an absolutely awesome event, personally. In terms of, I know the Xenothreat event was the first event that we got, right? And I don't think they've hit the ball out of the park with every event. What's the event with the station? It was supposed to be a PvP event. What's it called? Is that everyone is so forgettable because it's so broken. Nine Tails Lockdown, right? Like that mission, that event was so I don't want to say poorly thought through. I'm sure it was thought through, but I don't think it was given enough aftercare. Right? It wasn't given enough support.
It's not enough in the game to make it work correctly. It's just not enough there for a blockade.
It's I don't think that's necessarily the issue. The issue is there's no reason to fly red, because as a red player you make like no money at all. Can
we be honest? That's an issue with the game as a whole right now.
That's been there for a while. I completely agree with you. When you're making a dynamic event, you can absolutely do things to pay both sides well.
I've said this a few times to the boys, and when I say the boys, I mean the Inforunners group. That core group, that core gameplay, once that goes online, the whole gameplay is going to change. And what we need for that core gameplay at the moment is scanning. He's got a great video on it, by the way. That one with the Carrick graphics that you've got, Space. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So that one, if you want to look at scanning, he's got a great video on it. But once scanning comes in and the cargo refactor, we literally then have piracy. They're the only two things we need. So I'm hoping
after the refactor, I'm so excited for. I completely agree with you, because I typically fly as a criminal.
Yep.
And
you look like
I'm constantly frustrated by the fact that whenever I'm trying to scan for something, all I can find are rocks.
Yeah. So after they do that cargo refactor, we just need the scanning. and that core gameplay loop that you're craving, once that's there, the whole game I think will really open up, and that dynamic or emergent gameplay they're looking for will just take off. They've just got to get scanning now. They're that close, and and it was on the roadmap before they kind of changed the roadmap. You know, at the start of the year where they kind of locked it down. It was on there for the end of the year, so I'm fingers crossed.
And to continue, I'll say that I still think the best event is Jumptown, which is incredible given the fact that it is the most simple event out of all of them. It's not cinematic whatsoever. They basically took what was an accidental community created event many years ago, and they kind of threw it back into the game, and it's absolutely great. It's not perfect. The fact that there's only one entrance to the building isn't that well thought through. I think it would have been fine if we had FPS tools such as ballistic shields in the game to help get through the door. Or they could have put an entrance in the ceiling of one of the rooms or something like that. But Siege of Orison,
an actual town.
I agree with you, dude. It should actually be a town. I completely
AI
agree with
moving
you.
around and stuff would be really cool. Look,
absolutely.
As a side note, watching you streamer boys play though, the downside, like I was watching Henkin, I've watched Croncy, I've watched a few others as well, and all that you see at the moment is them in the Centurion like this for 6 hours straight,
looking around. I completely agree with you.
So it's boring stream.
I completely agree with you from a content mindset. It is very boring, but as a streamer, there are things that you can do to still be engaging with your chat, right?
Do you think they worked out the Centurion release to line up with Jumptown? Because it seems like the perfect vehicle, honestly, for Jumptown.
I have comments absolutely about the Centurion. I think the Centurion is one of the best things that's ever happened to Star Citizen personally. Okay. Absolutely, dude.
I'd love your thoughts on that because we've got a lot.
I can give it now. The answer to your question is yes. Obviously, we've had Jumptown for a little while now, but I think from Jumptown being there, and this is where like people like Kay Winter from the player experience team, a friend of mine, Ari Neo, who's also a Star Citizen content creator, but for the Spanish community, he now works in the player experience team as well. Wow. And these guys, I think, very quick, and not necessarily them, but just generally the player experience team, they became aware very quickly that one of the issues with Jumptown is that it's the ballista is great, but once you're out of missiles, it's completely useless, and we have no way to rearm them other than either bring another ballista or take that ballista away, rearm it, and then bring it back.
Our biggest concern with the Centurion. So we had a lot of the military boys look at the Spartan and the Ballista when they came out, and they fully predicted, because just like in the real world, they have a vehicle platform like the Atlas. They take a lot of different weapons and things and put them on the back. We were predicting that there's at least a couple more.
Well, the T-72 is a perfect example of that, you know.
Yeah, things like the J-Wiz and turrets and stuff. Yeah. And they've gone through things like they're expecting like a Spartan that's got a medical bed or a command and control center, stuff like that. They called something like the Centurion months ago, and they've all been spot on. And so our only concern is how copy and pasted that is, because we also think they're doing that vehicle deliberately because they're working on Squadron 42 at the moment. It's very low hanging fruit to release a different version, but we do hope at the final end that you can cross-pollinate. So, you know, imagine take off the turret off a Centurion and put the ballista back on, because fundamentally it's just like a rack swap. That's it. That's all it really is. Oh, I guess there's the extra coolers. But again, if you could just take that module off and put another one on, that makes that vehicle. I just don't want them to be separate.
Yeah, it's. I was talking to my
variants.
I was talking to my chat about this the other day, and it turns out actually, because somebody in my community had talked to a dev about this, it's actually not quite as copy pasta as it looks because of things like the components being slightly different. I think that actually, because of the tool sets that they have internally, it's not quite as easy for them just to, you know, to swap out.
We'll see, because
modules like that.
If you can replace,
in the long term,
if you can replace that whole end trailer though, those coolers are directly under the turret.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in the future that will absolutely be the case, but right now I don't think, because of the way that those vehicles are set up, it's still quite a manual process, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm absolutely fine with them using the same chassis to create multiple different types of vehicle as a way for them as a learning experience, essentially, right? To try and work out what types of ground vehicle they want. And to see how well they work on the battlefield, as per se. And then once they've kind of worked out the different types of vehicles that they want and what size weapons that they should have, etc., then make a new chassis and then give players more choice on the aesthetics of or the manufacturer, right? I can't quite.
How have you found it, Space? I was just going to ask Space his thoughts on it because, what's your thoughts
on Siege or the Centurion?
Both.
I haven't actually been able to play through a whole round of Siege, but I think the best part about it is probably just the diversity it affords to combat in the game, because we've been doing so much FPS combat underground in every situation for like the last 4 years. So being able to go through an open air scenario with long sight lines, with landmarks in the distance, with different types of cover, loot, all that kind of stuff, and then on top of it, putting it in an urban environment, I think has diversified the game a lot more and kind of reminds people that there's more possible in this game than just some caves and bunkers and military installations and stuff like that. We can totally see things happening inside of the cities that we're seeing and in these major areas that you just don't get in space games. So I think it was cool in that respect. I think it's probably a little bit premature in terms of performance to have it in that specific situation, but they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And honestly, it's probably best for them to just get it out right now in a place where they can test it, run it, make sure it's good, so that in a year or two, when the frame rates are better and server meshing is working, that event is going off without a hitch, just like these other ones. So it might feel like it's a waste of time that they're getting some of this stuff in because it feels too fancy for the game right now, but it's all going to pay dividends in the future.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts on the Centurion as well, because we kind of took off there, and I just realized we were leaving.
Yeah, I don't
want
to. I'll get back to the Centurion. Go ahead and rebut.
Go ahead, boys.
No, I was just going to say, I've always played this game from the standpoint of being a pilot. I've never really been that interested in FPS, and I think one of the main reasons is because I typically don't play that many FPS games anyway. I'll play through the Call of Duty campaigns because, let's face it, they are cinematically amazing games if you play through the campaign. But the multiplayer, really not that interested in whatsoever because it's not my kind of thing. I like flying and driving vehicles. But, I gave Siege of Orison a really good go. And for one, obviously now in 3.17.2 we have the dynamic player caps, right? So when the events start, it brings the player cap down, and then once the event is over, it brings it back up. But I think the way that the dynamic player caps work is that it locks the player cap. It doesn't kick people out. So if there's 130 people on the server and then it drops it down to 75, if all those people don't leave, then they're still there. And something that I've definitely noticed is that apart from one time, pretty much every time I've taken part in Siege of Orison, the server performance has been terrible. The first time I tried to do it, my party members were actually teleporting. And when I say teleporting, I would see them, and I'm trying to follow them, right? They would run for about 10 seconds, and then they would stop. And I would stand next to them, only to realize that actually on their screen, they hadn't stopped running. And then they would teleport 100 meters away. And then they would run for 10 seconds and then stop. And it was that over and over and over. And it was a terrible experience. It was really, really bad. And then on top of that, and I will say positive things about the event in just a moment. I just want to start with the negatives first. The AI also teleports around. So, you're coming out the elevators, you're checking your corners, etc., etc. and you think you're clear, and then all of a sudden 4 NPCs teleport in front of you and just absolutely nuke you. But I will say this, when you are on a server that is performing well, yesterday on stream, I actually managed to complete the event once. And the performance was actually pretty decent. It is a great event, but my one criticism is this. If you get knocked down or you arrive slightly late, by God, does it feel like you are just constantly trying to catch up with the rest of the group?
Yeah.
And I really wish they had designed it more as a kind of bicycle wheel with spokes off kind of level, rather than, when I say linear, it's obviously not a linear mission, but because you have to go from platform A to B to C, and it really does feel like if you're trying to catch up with your friends who are on the last platform. The first time I attempted it was actually with Holly, and I caught up with them as they completed the mission, and it's a little bit frustrating, you know. But other than that, I think it's a great mission. The platforms, though, man, the level designers have done an incredible job of those platforms. And I'll say now that I was so incredibly excited to see in the latest roadmap that it is their plan in 3.18 to actually use those platforms for actual missions. And for me, I will stop talking in a second and give you guys a chance to. I'm just highly passionate about this.
That's why we're here.
I think those platforms do a better job of being a city than any city in Star Citizen. And what I mean by this is, you know, when we got Lawville, which was our first city, right? You know, it was an incredible experience, and I still think that Lawville is one of the best cities. But the issue that I've always had with all of the cities is that, you know, you obviously have the store for buying your weapons, you have the store for buying your ships, you have the bar, which is historically something that definitely comes from where you pick up your missions from space games. But, you know, where do the people live in these cities? And
in the
something,
Habs, apparently. Everyone lives
in
upstairs.
The Habs, apparently.
Yeah.
And they only eat from the Noodle, Big Belly noodle machines, apparently.
Strictly a noodle diet.
Yeah, and something that I think that these platforms have done is, you know, when you see those gyms and you see those restaurants, it actually makes these locations feel like, and the offices as well, it makes them feel a little bit more alive.
I think that's a little bit of it's further along, you know. So
yes.
I think eventually we will see those in the other cities as well.
Well, we know that Lawville's being reworked, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see more of that in the rework of Lawville.
So I've got a question for you, Space. Based on kind of what Moist just said, how they've been kind of released increased the player caps. I've seen things like 75 up to 150 player server limit. Do you think that was the appropriate time to do that with the Horizon event coming? I think, like, my personal thing is, like, maybe giving some of that bandwidth to the event rather than extra players. How do you feel about that, Space?
I don't know how it works behind the scenes. I'm assuming they went and looked at both possibilities and probably went with whatever one was more beneficial. Personally, I think the decisions could have been made separate from each other and wouldn't have mattered much, because Orison is temporary. Siege of Orison's temporary. It'll run again at some point, but it's only running now for a couple of weeks. The server increases are something that I think they should have. If they had the room to do it, it was a good idea to do it.
I agree. I actually do agree. And I have a funny feeling that this is a piece of tech that needed to be in place for what is coming down the road. And quite frankly, it just needed to be tested.
Agreed.
You know?
It does definitely feel like something, as you said, coming down the road. So, yeah.
Yeah, and me complaining about the server performance doesn't take away from that. You know, it's like you talked about me being logical before, and yet passionate. I am incredibly passionate, especially when the game doesn't work very well. But I understand very often why they do the things that they do.
Well, look at all the other events. They all started out shit and, you know, laggy, and they've all improved.
Yeah, and Ninetales Lockdown never got better.
But what I'm trying to say is Horizon will get better, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
And,
yeah, absolutely.
It's a very different event too. I think it's a really good test of the FPS, so to speak, because as all the other events, as you kind of mentioned, have been pilot based. So this is good to see like an on foot one, and I think the next version will be something like a vehicle one.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
One of our members.
Funny you say that. The one thing, sorry to interrupt, right. I will shut up in just a second, I promise, is mentioning the vehicles. I am a little bit let down by the fact that we've got those C2s or A2s and M2s, whatever there, and they have vehicles inside them, but there's not really anywhere on the platforms to drive them, which is a bit of a shame, you know. I think that would be nice to see.
I think that's a sign of things to come. What if the next step, instead of like 3 platforms that are the same, so maybe the middle one is a vehicle-based combat one. So,
that would actually be sick. Yeah.
So go back and take out the middle platform, and it's a whole vehicle-based one where you know, maybe like akin to the bosses in a chopper, and you've all got to shoot the guy.
That would be sick, actually.
The chopper, you know, like you could see that like a big Battlefield-esque battle, and you're fighting AI that are all in their own vehicles and stuff. So that could be something that's coming down the pipe. You know, I thought of that too. As soon, you know. When I saw that too, and I do see that as a thing. And you got to remember, I think it was you that first told me too, Space. They're now planning to have 100 ground vehicles. Like that changes the game for me quite drastically. Like what, and I think you kind of see yourself what ground vehicles they want to have, and you can literally almost take anything that's in space and, you know, so you can go the Apollo, so we could have an ambulance. You know, you have other things because most vehicles are in atmosphere, things that we wouldn't logically think of, like a fire truck. You know, there's a lot more. You know, I asked the questions of what are the vehicles we are more likely to see because we're on the ground. And I think when you start to really analyze that and go through, there's a real depth of vehicles there that I wasn't expecting. So yeah. What about
Definitely need a ground vehicle with a tractor beam, like soon.
Yeah, like it's essentially, isn't it just the SRV but on the ground? So it's essentially a tow truck for the ground.
Yeah, you know, something like the mule, with a tractor on it.
Yeah, well, me and Agra talked about this when the mule came out. Actually, you can see the mule is like the lowest level of cargo transport for the ground, but you know the raft with the really big cargo containers, there has to be a truck that carries one of those. So literally akin to a semi-trailer that carries that, and that would need something like a tractor beam to pick them up. Yeah. So yeah,
I'm really sorry to bring up real life for a second, but I follow the Ukraine crisis incredibly closely, and if there's one thing that I have learned from this whole process is that typically in most militaries, for every 1 shooter, there are 4 support personnel, right? But secondly, one of the most important things in war is the logistics. Holy shit. Refueling, rearming, cranes, even minesweepers, bridge layers, all sorts.
You are literally... You are literally repeating almost verbatim what all the military guys say. They always talk about logistics. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm actually very, very excited to see more logistics roles being flushed out in Star Citizen for sure, even in ships and ground vehicles.
Well, you know how you said yourself was here for the combat. You'd actually be surprised how many people are here for everything else. Like,
that's the thing. I'm actually personally more interested in the logistics than the actual combat. You know,
most people we talk to when we do fleets and stuff, they are like combat. Like, we get combat people, obviously, but I would say the vast majority of people are not looking for combat. They want the logistics. They want, they want repair. They want medical. They want the mining, gas mining, refining, all that type of thing. They're far more interested in that background stuff, which
for sure.
It's really interesting.
Because you can get combat anywhere. One of the draws of Star Citizen is that they're offering this experience where you can go and do all these different things that normally you don't see. This is what I said
at the beginning, right? It draws in so many people from so many different backgrounds who like different things and want different things out of the game.
Yeah.
Did you boys happen to read the monthly report yet?
I did. Yes. I've already forgotten most of it, but I remember being very excited at the time.
I'm bringing this up on my screen.
I've gone through it.
And I know you guys can see this, right? So I'm just bringing it. You guys can't see this, watching the thing.
I feel very passionate about hull stripping.
When this came up, I got so excited because the Reclaimer's my favorite ship, you see, Space and Noodle. So yeah, they're adding that hull stripping feature to the Reclaimer. So finally, this big beast that's been in the game for 4 years can actually do something.
Can I just say that there are two ships that really finally got me to bite the bullet and back Star Citizen in 2014. So I followed the project since day one, but I didn't back till 2014. And it was seeing the concept art for the Reclaimer and seeing the Hornet in the original trailer.
Wait, so I got to ask real quick. So you've been here since Kickstarter?
I've been following it since the Kickstarter. I only backed in 2014.
I'm building a list of people that have been around since Kickstarter. You're the fourth.
Okay.
I've only found 4 people. No, seriously. So it's I can't remember the third one, but it was me, Erad, and you're the fourth. And I can't remember the other one. There is so few of us, man.
One of my moderators, Senelaya, has been around since the Kickstarter, and the guy whose house I'm looking after at the moment has been around since the Kickstarter.
I'm specifically looking for content creators though, because what I'm finding is most of us moved on. You know,
I found that actually. I
remember there was a guy I was watching a review of a game the other day called The Riftbreaker, and his voice sounded really familiar. I went back and looked at his stuff. He started out with Star Citizen, and he's just completely moved off to everything else.
I mean, imagine, you don't have to imagine, but 10 years is a long time to cover something that moved as slow as this game did those first 5 years.
Well, I think people like yourself and Morph, you know, you guys have been here 3-4 years, yeah? I think you said 2018.
I backed in 2014.
Right, but you started doing content, right?
I started doing content in 2019.
Like, the way you and Morph talk to me is like, oh, you haven't been here very long. Dude, I think you've been here, 3 years is a bloody long time. You know, 4 years is a bloody long time. I might have been here at, I'm ancient, right? But the thing is...
Red Lear.
Sorry? Red Lear?
Don't forget Red Lear. He's been around since the Kickstarter. Yeah. All right. But yeah, you're completely right. Like, you know, I think about the OG streamers. You know, I remember watching the Star Citizen category on Twitch when there were 3-4 people streaming in the whole category.
Do you know of the, there's a lot of people where real life has got in. So I think of Sia. Sia is an Inforunner. I hardly ever see him. He's gone off. He makes music videos now in LA, right? You would remember Great Headed Gamer. I used to love his content.
I've met him IRL. Yeah,
and he's real life just interfered. So yeah, sorry.
Did Sear stop with his aeronautic stuff?
Yeah, he kind of so basically he I still talk with him maybe once every 3 or 4 months, but he just doesn't have the time because he's making so much bank making these music videos, and so he hasn't worked on his own content. But he drops by and sees me, you know, every once in a while, and I keep saying whenever you want to do an episode, just drop by. But he just doesn't have time. He's literally you know. Real life has just interfered, and that's so what I'm trying to say with this list that I'm building is I'm just curious to see who's stayed around or who's popped up, you know, that's been here that long. And I just think a lot of, even my own housemate, right? My housemate actually was the person that said, hey, have you seen this new game on Kickstarter? And he thinks Star Citizen's a scam. We talk about it in the kitchen once every 6 months. I go, oh, did you want an update on Star Citizen? And he knows I do all this YouTube content, and he thinks I'm a complete joke, right? But he's my biggest critic, right? And all he has is the it was called the Bounty Hunting package, which is the 300i. He's still got that all these years later, and he's never downloaded the game, he's never tried it or anything, and he's just waiting for the day when it eventually comes out. And I don't know when it's going to come.
We've lost people as well, like Wickstrom as an example, right? But
that's true.
Yeah, but the thing is, you know, I'm still here, I think, because, like I said earlier, I'm a single guy. I have no kids, and I am very much a nomad, right? I move around, I do whatever, and I, you know, to some people, not having a family might seem sad, but actually, it's a lifestyle that I really like, you know. So what I'm basically saying is I can afford to sit here.
I'm in exactly the same boat. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I'm exactly the same. I'm single. So don't worry about it. You'll turn out fine, bro. You'll be fine.
I can sit here and I can play video games all day and I can follow Star Citizen. But you know, when I look at friends of mine, you know, I'll use Red Lear as an example. Actually, he has a wife and a kid now. You know, and while he does still stream Star Citizen, I know that he's trying to make more of a move to YouTube because YouTube is a little bit more family friendly for content creators. You know, you absolutely don't have to necessarily pump as many. Well, I know Tomato, the amount of effort that Tomato puts into his videos, I'm sure he pumps in some absolutely ridiculous hours, but you know, you definitely don't have to put in as many hours depending on the type of content that you're creating. You know, so
yeah, it's streaming versus making videos is like you don't have to sit in front of a computer and a camera all day if you're making videos. If you're streaming, you're not doing anything if you're not live, and that's rough.
Can I ask an awkward question then? Since we're talking about YouTube and Twitch, it is an awkward question, right? And Space is probably better to answer this than you or I, because do you have your own YouTube channel, Moist, or not?
I do. I bring out a video a year.
Right.
And I'll say this, they're great videos when I bring them out. Absolutely awesome. Yeah.
You can always go up from there in terms of the amount of videos. So that's a good starting point.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. So we stream every Friday, and we probably get about 10 viewers on Twitch, but then we can get up to like 160 on YouTube, right? When we stream, right? But one of the things we brought up with Sandy when we interviewed her a couple of months back is that CIG just seems to have this problem with YouTubers. They don't reach out to us YouTubers like they reach out to Twitch. Now, Space is ironically in the middle between those two, and we've just never ever been contacted by a CIG. So to give an example, like you guys were given the Centurion, we've never been given anything, right? Yeah. They just don't. They've just never ever reached out to us. And I hear that from a lot of YouTubers, and having talked to Morph and all the other guys I talk to, they just seem to strongly favor Twitch, and I'd love to know why that is.
Yeah,
but no one can tell me.
You know what? I was talking to Citizen Talk about 8 weeks ago, and the same thing with him. And the amount of followers he has on TikTok is absolutely insane, and he creates purely Star Citizen content. And I don't know what the answer is, but I suspect it's just because of the culture of Twitch, and.
Well, it's like you said. I said earlier about the them not seeing things. Like you were talking about the what was the team? The experience team. I just don't like. Why haven't they reached out to YouTubers and, as you said, TikTokers and other media platforms? I'm hearing those dogs you were talking about before the show, but that's fine. Don't worry.
That wasn't me.
No, that's me.
Oh, was that you? Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I
Wait, when you said they gave us Centurions, do you mean like they gave Centurions out for giveaways?
Yeah, well, you guys get them for giveaways and stuff, but it also helps you review them. You didn't get one?
I have not been getting, no.
Wow.
So I have a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, I didn't get given giveaway ships for a long time.
Right.
And
that's what's happening right now.
I was asked about this in my Twitch chat once, and I went off on a major rant. And I think when I ranted, either Ulf or Xylo was in my chat at the time, because this was before Jake went to CIG, and I very quickly received an email. Like pretty much at the end of my stream, there was an email waiting for me with an apology. They had just overlooked me, and that's a shame. But
it just feels a little bit like haves and have-nots. Do you know what I mean? And, And I don't like expect shit for free. I don't expect ships for giveaways.
No, yeah.
But what I would like is access so I can review them. Do you know what I mean? Even if there was an account that I could use temporarily, like you know, on the PTU access, even if I was just given access while it was on the PTU so I could review it, because there's very much a have. Like I wish they had a system where you could say, I'm a content creator.
Yes, I agree.
Excuse me. I'm a content creator. I would like to review your ships as they come out. Can I get PTU access? And I think that would solve all the problems.
Yeah. I actually do agree with you. I'll shut up in a second. I promise, Tomato. The conversation that I had, I have to say it because I'm so ADHD. If I don't say it while it's in my brain, I know I seem rude, but I completely forget, and then I lose my train of thought.
Yep.
But the conversation I had with Citizen Talk really opened my eyes, and I completely agree with you. I think that there should be a process for applying. The reason I think, though, that Twitch streamers tend to get the love is just because of how strong Twitch is as a live streaming platform, and how engaging the communities are, and how easy it is for CIG devs to get in touch with just to talk to them via chat. Whereas I think even though you can stream on YouTube, I think it's harder to find those streams.
And I'll throw this to you, Space. You Space and I have talked about this a lot, and we've really got off topic. This is such a content creator problem. So we'll have to wrap this up soon and get back to Star Citizen. But Space, you literally said to me the way the algorithm on YouTube works, it's so much easier to be found. Like when I was streaming on Twitch, I struggled. You know how I was streaming recently, and I've kind of stopped because I just wanted people to talk to, and the chat was just dead quiet. I'd have 50 people watching me, and I just no interaction. And you know, kind of like you said, you've got ADHD. I'm bipolar, and so if I don't have someone to bounce off, I just fall flat. And Space, you've done both, and you give us your analysis. What? Because you seem to prefer YouTube, yeah? Or am I mistaken?
Well, yeah. So the experience is definitely different, and I'm actually I will get to the whole thing why I think they use Twitch, but going back to the access thing and them sending out emails and all that stuff, I haven't gotten an email from them since March. Oh, wow. And the main reason it bugs me isn't because of the ships. I'm just like you. I don't really expect to have things free given or anything, but the heads up that something is going to happen is so helpful for putting together a YouTube video. Because my YouTube videos are around a 10 to 14 day process of making. So like if a patch comes out and I didn't know it was going to come out, I have to get started on that video, and I'm not putting it out until a week later. Whereas if they tell me like 4 days before it comes out, I can start preparing for that. And that's really been hurting me these last few months. I actually emailed them about it last month, and I just checked. They haven't even gotten back to me. So I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's because my Twitch stream is not as strong as it was before, or if, because like you said, it might be based on Twitch. That kind of correlated. And I think a lot of what they like about Twitch is kind of like what you were saying. It's easy to communicate with people.
Well, they're working with Amazon as well. That's the other thing, you know?
Well, yeah, I don't know if that factors in, but it's certainly easier to communicate with the streamers on Twitch. And YouTube isn't reliable because what you have to do on YouTube is you either have to fit it into the beginning or the end of your video, or do something special to point it out. And most people aren't going to put in the effort to make a big announcement in the video itself, because a lot of people click off because of that stuff. With YouTube, it's very fickle how you have to do that stuff. On Twitch, you got a command, you put that command in the title, anybody can see the giveaway at any point. It links right there in chat, and it's very easy to do. So I think it's just custom, almost curated for these giveaways, and they put a lot more focus on that. I mean, they'd have to go in and figure out how do we make sure that creators are hosting reliable and good giveaways on TikTok. Is that worth the investment of sending those ships out? And it's like, no, why don't we just keep doing Twitch? And I think that there's just a lot of stuff like the alerts, the commands, the ability to host giveaways on stream chats or on chat bots on Twitch that you can't do on YouTube. Just little things that make it way easier to do it on Twitch.
Yeah, so you're just saying in short, YouTube's just not quite there yet with the commands and stuff. And I do agree. Like they only just brought in rating like a week or two ago. So yeah, I think before this officially turns into a content creator bitch session, I will just say that I agree with you, Moist. I'm going back to your first point, or one of your first points, where you said there's so many new content creators. Maybe that's a part about why they don't contact anyone. There's just so many more people they've got to contact now that they just don't have the team to handle us all.
I think it's getting to a point where they're probably going to have to create an official like system. Well, you know,
maybe it's on me too. Maybe I should reach out to someone like Xylo. You know, I don't have a relationship with Xylo. You know, I have different, like you said, I have different friends in different contexts than CIG. But maybe I should, you know, foster that with Xylo, and maybe I will get more access or whatever. But
I think fostering relationships is not just with community team members, but in general is incredibly important. I think when you're a content creator, like for example, Xylo, I'm not in Xylo's DMs every day, but I'll tell you one thing that I do is when I'm super aware that the community team is going through an incredibly difficult period, I go out of my time to message a couple of the guys I know, including Xylo and Jake, who I know they're on the community team. I'm like, dude, I get you going through a tough time at the moment. My thoughts are with you. You know, just keep your chin up. You know, just little things like that. I know it might seem a little bit demeaning or whatever, but
no, I can tell you right now that happens with other content creators. I know. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, and you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I used to work in the IT industry. The job that I worked in was incredibly stressful, and I remember that we had like 20 calls in the queue one day, and it was when the WannaCry virus was going around, right? And we were having a really tough time, a lot of angry customers. And there was this one customer that we had called Paul. And I remember answering my phone, and every time before I clicked the answer button, I had to try and put a smile on my face and just take a deep breath, click answer, and it was him. And he was like, dude, I don't actually have any issues. I just wanted to let you know that I know you're going through a really shitty time at the moment. And I appreciate everything that you've done for me. I was like, dude, you know what? You've given me like a 2-minute breather. Thank you so much. You know, it was just like a couple of kind words from somebody when you feel like the whole world is falling down around you makes actually, I think, a lot of difference. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, someone that's bipolar too, I can totally relate to that. You'd be surprised. You know, even Space has reached out to me when I'm, you know, in a weird place or somewhere like that. It really does make a lot of difference. And
for sure.
I'm thinking of a few people. Actually, there's a person listening to us right now. He made a post this week, and yeah, just it's good to hear from certain people when they're in a bad place. So yeah, the person that I'm talking to in chat knows who I'm talking to, and I was very glad to hear from you, mate. And I hope you're on the mend.
Real quick.
Yep.
You were talking about the monthly report earlier.
Yep.
Just wanted to bring up, because you guys mentioned maybe an official kind of creators thing, whatever. Mm-hmm. Something they've been mentioning on the last 2 monthly reports, kind of stealthily, but also they've been really talking it up, is that they're remaking the community hub on the website. And they are talking about it like it is a huge overhaul. So I'm betting that with that comes some sort of ability to sign up to show that you are maybe a content creator or journalist or something that covers.
That would be really nice.
I always thought when they originally did that, right? Because there was we signed up the podcast all those years ago. That back when I did Star Signal, I always thought that was going to be you submit every episode, and but it was just the podcast that was a one-off. I always thought it would be cool if you could post every episode there. And so it was like this hub of content. That was what I was expecting it to be. And if
should just be an RSS feed.
Exactly. Yeah, and I just think that'd be awesome, because then you can go there and, you know, you could almost filter like different things. You know, I want to look at something where they're talking about salvage, or you could put in keywords, so you could just use a bunch of tags and an RSS feed. I just that's exactly what it should be. Yeah, I agree. All right, we really need to go back to Star System, because we're venting. If anyone that is listening to this is now tuned out, we've lost everyone. That's why, because we're venting. Yeah.
Whenever it goes in this direction, people are not happy.
But that's just what happened. You know, as content creators, we don't often get to sit down and actually talk to each other. This is why me and Space have started doing this, and it probably will become a series, because you just don't get to sit down and talk with other content creators. It's just, we're all too busy. I haven't seen. I think I saw Paul 3 months ago, and before that it was 2 months before that. You know, so Paul's got so incredibly busy. You know, and Space I see probably maybe once a month I see you now. So you both got so incredibly busy. We're, you know, 6 months prior to that, I was seeing them every week. So
you know, I was at TwitchCon Amsterdam a few weeks ago, and I got to spend quite a bit of time with Anna.
Yep.
And I got to say, like, Anna really opened my eyes as to how busy some content creators are, because holy shit, that girl don't half work. Holy moly. It was really nice to spend time with her and other content creators, you know, but it really opened my eyes to the things that I really should be doing. But I think I'm a little bit too old fashioned to keep my head glued to my phone and social media constantly.
That goes back to that whole thing, like when we all work in the same industry, there's already that instant rapport, because we know what we're all going through. Kind of like what I said before, when you're talking just to people at a bar Citizen, they're all into Star Citizen. So yeah. All right, let's bring this around. Okay, so we've talked about the current patch. Let's talk about the future, and then after that, I think we'll wrap it up. So what are you guys hoping to see? I don't know. What do we want to say? Do we want to say the end of the year? Do we want to say 12 months from now? I'll open the floor there. What are you guys hoping to see in that time frame? You know, the next 6 to 12 months.
I'll be completely honest with you. My mind doesn't work that way anymore with Star Citizen. Mm-hmm. I think that, and this actually comes back to when we were talking about content creators who have come and gone. Mm-hmm. I think my mindset has definitely saved me in that regard, in that I only think about the things that are immediately in front of us and the things that are coming in the next patch, right? Yep. Because I think it's incredibly easy to burn out when you get super excited about the prospect of something coming in like 6 months or a year's time, only to find the thing that you were really hoping was coming just never comes, right?
Yeah. I think that's a part of, like, I think by now you understand the development process though. And I think the one thing I do appreciate about Star Citizen as a former developer is how many people it's actually taught how development works. That it's R&D, you know, and
for me, I think the best product that CIG has ever created is the community and their ability to teach the community about development.
Yeah.
Rather than the actual game itself right now. Because although I've never worked in games development, I understand. Obviously, I don't know everything, and there's a lot that I don't understand, but I feel like I understand a lot more about game development now than. My IT background definitely helps as well, because although I wasn't a developer, I still had to work with developers day in, day out, you know, so
you'd understand what they call it, software development, and that's not that different from games development.
Yeah, like, you know, my head was I was basically a server engineer, right? So my head was in Jira all day, every day, submitting tickets, responding to tickets, etc., etc. But for me, 318, somebody who plays as a criminal, the cargo refactor, man, like, I'm so excited for that. The ability to actually remove cargo from people's ships. It means that when somebody doesn't want to give money, we'll just be able to take, you know, and although that might seem a little bit unkind, that is part of the game. And it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to. And you know, for people like Mongrel Squad, who create incredible content on both YouTube and on Twitch, you know, that's content I'm super excited to see, and it's part of the dream of Star Citizen.
I would love one time to hang out with you, and I'll be in the Caterpillar, and you can just bring all your loot back, right? I'll be your loot holder. You can be out in the...
Yeah, it's logistics, bro. Even pirates need logistics, you know? And I'm really hoping in 318 to go hang out with the Mongrel Squad guys, because typically I normally play with Space Cutlet, but for those who don't know, Space Cutlet is Ukrainian. He's fled Ukraine with his family and is now living in Berlin in a single room with his wife, daughter, and his parents in one room. And he's just not in a position to really play the game or stream at the moment, So
is he well though? Like, I'll just ask that.
I literally messaged him this morning just to see how he was doing, because he sent me some pictures the other day of some tarantulas at Berlin Zoo, which I was really excited about. But I can read what he said verbatim. He said, and I quote, "It's hard, I'm not going to lie, but I'm out of harm's way, so that's probably, that counts above all else." And that's true, you know? So...
Just probably incredibly hard.
Do you know who I talk about if I say Tripol, right? You know who Tripol is?
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, he told me he talked to you quite a bit about helping get him out of the Ukraine.
At the time it was incredibly difficult because I had so many people trying to help me. So I probably do know them, but probably can't remember.
It's all good. But yeah, I did really appreciate what you did on that stream, and I think it was really good to see the community kind of come together. How you did that over that time, and
so I think we raised about $15,000 for them altogether, and they're still living off that money, by the way. So that was an incredible help for them. But not only that, but one of the guys from who helps run tests is from Poland, and he actually went to the border and picked up Cutlet's wife and daughter ahead of time and drove them all the way to Berlin. And then when it came Cutlet's time to leave, he went all the way to the border again, picked up Cutlet from the border and drove him all the way to Berlin.
Wow.
You know, and
that's the community right there.
They'd never met before.
100%.
That's the Star Citizen community, you know, so...
It's good to see us come together on an event like that we can help out.
Absolutely,
yeah. 100% agree. And I hope you're well, Space, if you're Cutlet, if you listen to this. So yeah. All right. Yours, Space. What are you looking forward to in the next 6 to 12 months?
I am honestly, I won't even look into next year because I think there's so much stuff that they could do this year, kind of low key, not major changes, nothing persistent entity streaming or server meshing monumental, but stuff that could definitely improve the game a lot And that's kind of any improvement in the holy trinity, in my opinion, is this what I call it. Either the economy, which is, the quantum simulation system, the reputation system, or the mission system. I think those three things are super, super key to expanding the content we have right now past just a list of things that you can do, but rather adding reason, consequence, and risk to all of the things that we're doing. And especially things like you said, Moist, with Ninetales Lockdown, reputation would make a big difference there. How people interact with you and what you're able to do, who's marked as a friend or a foe. Like, these are the types of things that when you look at Star Citizen, you're like, there's a lot of stuff missing, but I don't know what it is. I think those three categories could make huge differences to the game. So I'm hoping we get at least an update, especially on the quantum system this year. But I'd also like to really see something on the reputation system as well.
No.
Something to bear in mind is all the little things that gets fixed as well, right? In between that aren't on the roadmap. Like, we've got a PTU build out at the moment, right? And this is, sorry to keep going on about content creator stuff, but it's such a huge thing for content creators. Just the friends list being in alphabetical order now is amazing, dude. And also not having the global list constantly refreshing is really, really nice. The little quality of life things like that really do make a huge difference in terms of me wanting to play the game.
One more, Star Map.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, the Star Map. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's something that I rant about every single stream, dude.
It's the worst part of the game at this point.
I completely agree with you.
Definitively.
I want to weight a select location in a list. So, like, you could just type the name of it, but there's also a list that you just click and it sets that waypoint. But
I think in 3.17, the fact now that we have contextual search in the shop kiosks, I don't think CIG or the devs at CIG who built that have got anywhere near as much love as they really deserve. Because I think people really underestimate how much of a huge task that was for them to develop. But the fact that we now have that, I'm really hoping that we start to see contextual search being rolled out across the UI more. Obviously, we're not going to get it on the older UI like the Mobi-Glass and stuff like that, but hopefully as we see building blocks being rolled out more and we get the new building blocks Mobi-Glass, that should be a feature that comes as standard. Would be really, really nice.
I'll make mine really short and quick then. For me, it's just what they've kind of said they want to get done. So I'm looking forward to server meshing, because it's that final foundational pillar. And I think there's a real damn wall of stuff that's really ready to kind of burst out when that's done. As we said, the cargo refactor, I think that's just going to be astronomically huge for the game. We've obviously got Salvage on there as well. It's the second game. Like, essentially, I said at the start of the year, the amount of gameplay we've got right now is going to double by the end of the year, because we're getting Salvage and the cargo refactor. And right now, all we've kind of really got is combat and mining. So that's going to be, the game's doubled. That's the first time we've had that in many years. And then I guess the map, as you said, is really important. And for me, just getting that dam to burst. I think it really is going to burst in the next 12 months, and there's going to be a flood of content. All this stuff that, like, think about all the weird stuff we've had, like AI standing on chairs and all that stuff. Like, you've both been on new servers like I have, and it runs like a dream. And then the more and more people come on where that bandwidth is taken up, it just starts to go to shit. So the game is there, the quests are there. We know they've got this dynamic quest system that you get all these different quests. They've talked about it. They just can't do it because the bandwidth is not there. So once the server meshing comes in, and that server meshing, unfortunately, is going to be like some of those real teething issues we've had, where it's probably going to take, like, from start to finish, it might take 12 months, right, to get that in.
But to touch on server meshing for a second, something I think that's really important to bear in mind is that pretty much every aspect of the game interacts with server meshing in some way or another. Same with persistent entity streaming, right? And I think there is a lot of tech in the game that is very patchwork at the moment, because it's been put in there as an intermediary before server meshing, which I think definitely doesn't help in terms of the bugs that we have in the game. right now, right? Because it doesn't really make sense to pull somebody away from working on server meshing to fix some patchwork that's a bit buggy at the moment when they could just be working on server meshing.
And that's where development hits that now and then process where you get there was a certain content creator we were talking about before the show, and that particular content creator struggles to see the now and the later, and they want them to stop and work and fix a problem right now.
Yeah.
But because they're trying to get to that end goal, and that's literally what I was trying to talk about. Is
exactly.
It's exactly what you're explaining there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think both persistent entity streaming, I think 3.18 is going to be an incredibly buggy patch. Incredibly buggy for a long time. And I think it's going to be the same with server meshing. I think they're going to be bug fixing for a long time. But once those are in place, in theory, we'll have less patchwork spaghetti code in there, right?
Well, because we're getting more to getting more towards that final code.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
So, hopefully, I don't want to say the Holy Grail, like 2 years, just 2 years, guys. But I think, a couple of years from now.
How long has that been a joke? For like the last 10 years? It's like, SOS is just 2 years away.
Yeah, I'm done with it.
I think I've heard board gamers say 2 years away about 8 times now over the last, like 8 years. But
I really am hoping to see the game starting to stabilize over the next couple of years, so.
All right, Space. I don't know about you, but at the start of the show, Mr. Moist said he doesn't want to be seen as a PvP person anymore. I don't know about you, but I think he's going to be seen as a space trucker from now on with his look today. But what about you?
I mean, we've talked about that before. Moist, you mentioned that you only really got into PvP because it was there, and you're more in the industry kind of side of things. I'm personally going to be all data running. I want to be a data broker. I think number one moments in gaming in terms of sci-fi content have been watching Oni operate in the Halo universe, watching the Shadow Broker operate in Mass Effect, and watching just the general vibe of things in the Deus Ex games. And I've always just been super excited to see how information can travel and change a game, and the way that they're focusing on that in this game, you can't do that in other MMOs. So that's really what I'm headed towards.
Well,
that's sick.
I've been watching you for the last month or so, Space. You've been hitting on all cylinders. Level cap. I saw you hanging out with Croncy and doing all these big events. You had Ollie on. You've had on your podcast, you're just hitting on all cylinders, man. Some big names on there at the moment. So, yeah. Where can people find that podcast if they want to see that?
Oh, it's on all of the different platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, or on YouTube. Space Tomato 2 is my YouTube channel where I post those. And I do them every week. And then I'm getting one started up now that's kind of once a month with a group that comes on. So that one, I don't know the future of that, but we'll see.
And what about yourself, Moist? Where can people find you in your space tracking adventures? Sorry, I keep saying space tracking. If anyone's seen my camera, dude, he looks like a space tracker today.
One of my favorite games to play is American Truck Sim and Euro Truck Sim. So
my brother's into
honestly,
that. My brother,
dude, I absolutely love it. It's so chill. It's such a vibe. So, space trucking, I am absolutely down for. But I stream daily from around 1 to 2 p.m. British Standard Time, and that's on twitch.tv/moist_noodle. And I do a bit of everything. Like I said earlier, I used to pretty much exclusively PvP dogfight, but the game has more to offer now, so I'm trying to delve in and do a little bit of everything. And the game is slowly crawling towards the finish line.
Well, I'll endeavour to come and reach out, and I'll join you sometime, and
that'd be sick.
I'd love to drag you around in my Redeemer and get you to give us some tips on my Redeemer. I'm a big Redeemer fan.
Oh yeah, I can give you a great tip for the Redeemer. Use the Hurricane. There we go. Fantastic.
All right. But I'll come hang out with you, and you can give me some tips. So that'd be good.
Sick.
Yeah. All right. What would you guys like to hear from people in the comments? is there anything you'd like to hear from the audience? Anything you would like to hear that we've talked about today? So what they're looking forward to, or something like that.
I mean, it's touching on the PvP stuff. It's been really, really nice seeing a lot more of the game's community delving into the world of PvP, and I think people like Avenger One have really helped with that, and definitely. I think Burks as well, Zero State, but also just things like Jumptown have definitely opened people's minds to taking part in PvP events. So just generally, I'd love to hear people's opinion on PvP, because I know it can still be quite diverse. You know, some people are super pro PvP, some people really are against it. So
I think Space said it better than anyone I can think of, where he said there's got to be things in this game that I don't like for it to be successful. Absolutely. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there, Space. I think that is everyone needs to take that line on board. If for this game to be for everyone, there has to be things in it that I don't like. And I think that's a really clever way to look at it. So what about you, Space?
Like misc ships, for example.
Somebody's got to buy them.
Wow, that's the first time I've ever heard someone hate on misc. It's usually Drake and Origin that we hear.
No, for me it's misc and Origin, dude. Like, don't get me wrong, the 400i is gorgeous, but
We'll save that for show number 2. We'll get you back for another conversation, I think. Space, is there anything you'd like to hear from anyone in the comments below?
I just like to hear what people think about the idea of looking at this game as it is now versus what it's becoming. Because almost every decisive moment in this game's development comes from, I think, it might not directly reflect this, but it comes from the two different philosophies of, is this good for the game now, or is it good for where it's going? And a lot of times the decision is different based on what CIG is doing. It shouldn't always be for the game going forward. It shouldn't always be for the game now. And I'd like to hear what people think of that and kind of how they view it, what they lean more towards. I think that's an interesting topic.
That is an interesting topic, because it's almost like marketing versus the design. But I won't open that can of worms. I'll just nudge and leave it there. But yeah, I think that's a really good one, and I'd like to hear the same thing. And anything else that you've got, because I'm sure Moist and yourself, Space, will actually come back and have a look at the comments. So if you do have a comment for Moist or Space, leave one there, and they'll check them out, and I'll be there as well. With that, then, thank you for joining us, Moist. He's been Moist Noodle.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back again if you want to join us. And he's been Space Tomato. I've been Execute. And we'll catch you in the next one. Feel free to say goodbye, guys.